Alright, so first thing, you got your ball of clay, you wedged it, and you turn it into a ball. Alright? So once you get it into a ball, you're going to find the center of the wheel here. And then you're going to turn it around like this. What you want to get here is sort of a dome shape. Why? Because then when you throw it onto the wheel head or the bat, it will expand out and it won't trap any air bubbles. Alright? Now, I'm pretty good at this, so I already kind of got it really well into the center. You know, but try to aim as well as you can so you can get it into the center and then put a little bit of force on when you throw it in. But prioritize your aim versus your power on how you're throwing it into the wheel. Alright? Next thing you're going to do is you're going to start turning this around and then pressing it downward. So you see how I expanded that into the bottom? And that's kind of becoming more of a, dome? Sort of like a, yeah, dome, exactly. More like a dome rather than a ball. So I'm kind of pressing it down. And what I'm doing here is just giving myself an easier beginning to actually work in the centering of the clay. Yeah, I can just grab the piece of clay, you know, as a square, toss it and then just manhandle the thing into a centering piece of clay, but why do that if you can just make it easier for yourself? If the clay is soft enough, I will do it, but usually backed up clay, it's a little on the stiffer side for me at least, so this is a good thing. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to blend this into the bat. So the reason I'm doing this is to make sure that this piece of clay really sticks well onto the bat, and also when I add the water, which is going to be the next step, no water creeps in between the bat.
So you're doing a pushing down.
Yeah, this seals it.
Right.
So if I didn't do that and I just leave that like shadow line there, water can start creeping in, and little by little it will unstick this piece of clay from the bat, and then you're throwing and then it just flies out. Alright, so now that I know that's stuck well, I'm going to add my water. Okay, and there's going to be two forces working against each other here. One of them is going to be vertical force that's coming from the top. Now if I press it, where's the clay going? It's going out, right? Yeah. If I press it down, it's going out. And lateral force, which is me pressing from the side. In this case, I'm doing this. It's just still just lateral force from the opposing sides, which makes the clay go where? Up, right? So if you do these two things at the same time, meaning, or you keep doing one or the other, so I'm going to basically do exactly what I just said. I'm going to press from the top, one side down, then I'm going to press from the side up. Press from the top, down, and then the sides.
It's really staying the same on the wheel. It's staying the same size. Your bottom hasn't changed.
Yeah, the bottom is fine. I'm just centering everything else here. Like this luckily I centered pretty well. Now if I wanted to press that in, I can also. I just gotta put pressure on that point. You know? So you see here, I narrow it down there. But anyway,
center.
You can keep going. This is centered already.
Yeah.
Right? So you can keep going and doing this on two separated steps, meaning pressing from the top and then pressing from the sides, or you can do both at the same time. It's good to have the notion that you're doing two things here. That's why I explained it separately. Because doing both things at the same time, which is what I'm doing right now, it requires a little bit more practice. So if you see here,
but you're adjusting your speed too.
yeah, the pedal is on the right foot. I'm gonna explain you exactly what's going on here, but so if you see, I'm pressing downwards and from the side. So I got this hand pressing downwards, and this other hand pressing from the side right here. So that's completely centered right there. Right? One thing about the wheel, yeah, I forgot to tell you, you got a pedal here, you turn it on, here on the sides just flips on and off, and then the pedal is basically like a car, except you don't have a brake. So if you're going fast and you step back, it's going to keep turning. Alright? So to center, it's not a bad idea to go a little on the fast side, but just make sure that you are comfortable. Alright? Meaning that you can handle the speed that you're working at. Obviously, if I'm making the centrifugal force is pulling the clay out at all times here. So if I'm making a bowl, obviously when I started getting it to this large size, you want to go slow, because if you go too fast, you can easily rip apart and fall down, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
So you keep going to your bottom and keep adjusting your edge a little bit.
This right here?
Yeah.
This is just to make sure that it's well attached.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
what if, did you just throw it on there and it was automatically centered, or how do you know when it is centered completely?
When
It's
you,
not wobbly.
yeah,
When
when
it's
it's
not
not
wobbly.
wobbly, so pretty much I'm gonna show you. If you put your finger on it and it doesn't bounce, just like a record player,
Okay.
it's centered. But you know, you can just squint a little bit with your eyes too and just see it like basically maintaining that same form.
No, that's smart. A record player is a good.
Or just put your finger and make sure there's no bumps, and that's pretty centered. And now this has been really easy to center because I gave myself an easy piece to center. But if you put the clay in sort of the center, but a little bit to the side, it's not well rounded, it's gonna be hard, all right? Especially at the beginning, all right? All right, from here on, we're gonna go to the second step, which is gonna be making our first hole. You can do this with any combination of fingers you want, all right? I use my thumb and my index finger because I got strength from my thumb and I got precision from my index finger on my right hand side, so that's just what works for me. But as many potters there are, probably just as many ways of starting this process here. So I'm going down to about a quarter to an eighth of an inch from the floor. Notice the difference of colors here. This is very important, and you guys are gonna wanna remember this. You see it? You see how it looks in this part here? How it's shiny? What's the difference between the center?
Dry.
It's dry in the center, right? So what's that telling you? Can anybody guess? No wrong guesses, really.
You need more water.
Yeah, I need more water, exactly. And the reason the water is going away here is because friction is drying it. So it just takes a few seconds for me to put water here, and look, I'm just gonna keep my finger there for a little bit, and look already, the friction dries it so fast. It's kind of insane, really, you know? Look at that, like I had water just a second ago. So just make sure you are adding enough water as you're working. And don't try to work on dry clay, because what you're going to be doing is not moving the clay, you're gonna be dragging it. So when you drag clay, you create all kinds of structural problems also that, you know, leads to cracks and just poor foundation, let's say. All right, so that's why you have a sponge. I'm trying to use the sponge as least as possible so you guys can see my actual fingers doing the work here. But I would usually always have the sponge in my hand, and I will apply water like you see here, and then dry it out so you can see what you're doing. Now, it's very important not to have this going on also, because for me it's fine because I know what's going on down here. Even though I can't see it, I know. But you guys at the beginning are not gonna know that. So you wanna make sure that you have it wet, and as long as you are drying, like about there, you have more water. And dry it out again and keep working, all right? That's just very important so you can see what you're doing. It's not gonna be as easy for you as for me to do this, because my fingers already can't tell me what's going on down there because I've been doing it for a while, all right? So once I get to the bottom here, you know, you're like, Andres, how do you know how far you've gone? Well, I've already gone 1,000 times, like I told you, right? But what you're going to use to determine that is going to be this needle tool. And you're going to measure the floor by just making a hole all the way to the bottom. Now don't let it go, usually, because if you have it too thin, it's just going to fall on the side. And there you're going to press with your middle finger, you're going to touch the floor. And then with your index finger and your thumb, you're going to hold the needle tool together, and you can see
Like
that's the
chopstick?
distance. Almost, yeah. So that's the distance right there from the floor of this piece of clay to the wheel head, right there. And that is exactly 1/8 of an inch, all right? And that's as thin as you want any pot that won't require trimming, meaning not a bowl, right? So the bowls, you remember, everybody saw the bowl, the food that I carved? So that had 1/2 inch when I threw it on the wheel. This is going to be a cylinder that's not going to require any trimming.
So you can
Yeah.
see
Oh,
in the video. I
yeah,
forgot.
an eighth of an inch. So since it doesn't require any trimming, I go as thin as an eighth of an inch. Okay, you don't want to go any thinner, and you can go between a quarter of an inch and a half, like a quarter of an inch and a fourth of an inch is the thickest without trimming. All right, just make sure that you don't get it thicker than a quarter of an inch. Am I throwing too many numbers at you guys, or are you guys good? You got it? You good? All right. I'm not thinking you're dumb, it's just a lot of stuff, all right? So just stop me if I'm saying too much stuff at one time. Or if you have any questions, stop me, all right? So I got down there. I got some steps here that I'll show you later, but pretty much this is your first hole, all right? That'll be step number 2 after centering. From here, you're going to extend out like this. So you see I'm moving very slow, and I'm just pulling towards myself. Going back from the center again, into the outside, very slowly. And then again. If you starts drying on you, remember to add water. Outside, and then maybe with my thumb so I can compress it a little, which is another important step. But basically what you're trying to do here is create a flat bottom, because we're making cylinders. Cylinders are sort of like the matrix of most matrix of the functional wear making. Functional wear. So anything that you make, the only thing that you can't make out of a cylinder is a ball. That's literally 2 things. All right, so balls are the only ones that have a different beginning here. Most of all the other things are going to come from this exact same process I'm doing. All right, so if you notice, I just dragged a flat bottom, and I can just prove that by checking here. 1/8 of an inch, going to the side here, 1/8 of an inch. All right, and obviously you can tell, but if you have doubts, just double check with that. Okay, and you're going to extend it to about, with a pound of clay, you're going to go to about 2 inches in diameter. All right, so diameter all the way across, right? Radius, diameter. All right, and then the sponge works really well to compress. You definitely want to compress, which is what I'm doing here. And what I mean by compression is putting pressure on the clay without moving the clay itself. It's sort of like just, I'm pressing on my arm, I'm putting pressure on my arm, but I'm not pushing it down, right? So 2 different things really, right? I can push it down, or I can just put pressure on it. That's what you want to do. And the reason you want to do that is because you've moved the clay from the center outwards in a spiral fashion. And what's happening there is there's a spiral being created by you dragging or moving the clay outwards. So when you compress, you basically just tell the clay to stay there and not to keep that spiral path. If you don't compress, this clay is pretty forgiving, so most of you are not going to have issues with that. But if you don't compress with clays like porcelain and very non-groggy clays, you'll just get a crack in the middle all the time and every time. All right, so it's just a good thing to get used to. You had a question, I think. Yeah, you made a face.
It's just on the different clays, but it'll be later when
Okay.
I need to know that.
All right, so I compress here, and now I got step number 3, which is this sort of ashtray-looking thing that is just step number 3. All right, then I'm gonna add water on the side, and here's where I'm really going to add a lot of water on the side. All right, you don't need a lot in the center, but you definitely need a lot on the side. Now, there's many ways to do this next step, but the gist of it is you're going to press. Now, instead of pushing from the inside to the outside, you're going to be pressing from the outside towards the inside. And what happened when I was doing that on the solid block of clay, it went up, right? So that's what you want, that's what our goal in this next step is. Now, you can do this many ways. You can do it with 2 hands pressing like that. You can do it with the sponge pressing against your other fingers here that are kind of just letting go slowly as you go up. Or you can do it with, with 2 fingers, like little by little. I'm going to show you how to do it with the sponge, but I really don't know. I've taught it different ways, and I really don't see any sort of better result. At the end of the day, it's just however you're more comfortable handling this situation. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I do it with the sponge, because this is just the easiest way for me to do it. and you got a lot of moisture that's being held by the sponge, which really helps you in this process. So I'm pushing forward here, and look how it distorts the shape. Can you see that? You see how it like goes like flat tired on this side here? All right, so I'm gonna put that much pressure on it. I'm not really putting much more pressure, and my finger inside is sort of just holding the wall there. I'm not pushing against it, I'm just holding it. Just like I can keep the weight of my arm as I go down. I'm still, you can just have your arm completely falling down, and you can hold your arm and you can hold it down like that, right? I'm not dropping it, right? I'm just holding it down. That's the exact same thing I'm doing with this finger in a physical sense. Does that make sense? All right. So that's a hard thing to explain. Anyway, so you push forward here.
You did a good job.
I think so. Thank you. You go forward here, and then you keep that pressure. So notice that you can see where my finger behind the sponge is putting the pressure. Like I'm right there, right? At this point, I'm here. I'm gonna keep going in and up as I go, and my finger is following that spot, that ridge right there that I've created. You all see that? Okay. So we're gonna keep going. You'll run out of water here too. So just make sure that you go back here. Add more water if you need more water. If you feel any drag, if you feel any friction, there's no rush. Just stop and get more water. All right. So you go back here. So yeah, I'm just holding it together. And go up. Now this step, you're starting to get a cylinder. This is the step that you're going to repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat a bunch of times. Now, if you notice that you got something like, an uneven rim, something like that, this is because you're moving too fast. You see that spiral going up? This means you're working too fast for the speed your wheel is working at. So you can go really slow with the wheel, but that's just gonna mean you're gonna have to go really slow with your hands. Or you can go really fast with the wheel, you see, and then it just expands like that, but you can move it faster. Alright, so I'm just gonna cut that off. Which, by the way, if you have an uneven rim like that, don't think it's over, oh my god, now I have to throw this away. You can just use your needle tool and then cut that, and you can keep working on this to make it a cylinder. Alright? So a lot of times, my point with this example is that whenever your rim is uneven, you can just compress it or cut it. And compressing is just holding this sponge, sort of creating this bridge shape, and then with two fingers press on the side here, and just press down here. And you can see how, you see that? Now it's completely centered again. Right? Alright, so, again, if I go really fast, that's way too fast to pull the wheel. There's no reason to do that. But there is a speed between, let's say, this speed here. There's a speed between here and here that will let you work a little faster, okay? So let's say, for example, I'd say like this speed's pretty good for me. It's a little faster, but it's, I am moving faster than I would if I go really slow. But at the beginning it's easier, sort of like, does anybody play any music instruments? Trombone. So like this thing about when you're learning a new song, you go really slow first, so you learn the notes.
Practice.
It's just practice. Like I remember learning how to play guitar. It's the beginning, like you do
That's
this
what
song.
I'm trying to learn right now.
You do this song. You do
so
this song
hard.
like a quarter of the speed that it really is, and then you just start getting better, and you do it like now half the speed that it goes, and then you go to just the normal, like if you're doing anything difficult, right? So same thing here. Begin with a slow speed, but just remember that you're gonna have to work way slower, right? Then you can move into a faster one, then you can move into a really fast one if you want. But anyway, same thing applies here. I'm going from the center here, and you're going to see from the bottom. And I don't know if you can see there well, but you guys can see. But if you see from here, basically what I'm doing is my finger is just pressing behind this punch right here, and I'm creating a mark. You see that? You see the shadow there?
Mm-hmm.
That's the mark where my finger is pressing inside and outside. I'm just going up. See that?
Mm-hmm.
And then I stop right before the ring. This is very important to stop before the rim, because you don't want your rim to be like
That's
this.
what I was gonna ask.
Drink out of that. Well, it's not uncomfortable to drink out of that, but you know, give it a week in your house before it chips, or before it bangs some other pot, whatever, and just breaks and stuff, right? Or it's not done, but it has a sharp edge now from where it broke. You were saying something?
What does the thickness have to be, like in between, like on the actual?
We're gonna cut this in half and I'll show you in just a sec.
You want to round it, a nice round edge.
You want it rounded. You don't want it. You don't want it circular too. There's a lot of potters, especially hobby potters that I've seen in like fairs and stuff. They'll give you a drinking pot like that I hate. This is not comfortable to drink from. All right, it's just not comfortable to drink from. That's it. And you'll see 100 pots, beautiful pots. You know, it's like, oh my God, this is a beautiful pot. Really nice glazes. Yeah, no, my husband makes this pot. I don't know. You grab it and you try to drink from that. It's just not comfortable. All right. So what I like and what I've been taught to do is sort of like have this concise, thick piece of clay on the top, but just shape it enough so the liquid can actually flow out of the cup. All right. Now I had like a very functionally oriented teacher and a very sculptural teacher. So yes, there is a bargain between two things. Sometimes if something looks very, very good, you can cheat your way around these functional issues. So I'm all about that, no problem. But you have to have a reason, right? There's aesthetical reasons will fight the functional reasons at some point or another, and that's okay. There's just most of the times no reason not to do this. That's what I mean. All right. So I'm gonna do one last pool here, and obviously I have less than a pound of clay, right? How much I took out? Probably, I don't know, a quarter pound I took out there, maybe a little less. So I'm gonna go back from the center, and here I'm gonna get aggressive, and this is how I will throw a cup. I'm gonna really push it in there. I'm gonna go from the center up. And this is something you're not gonna need to do. This is very aggressive, just trying to get as much clay as I can from all the wall there. And you guys are going to aim to get at least 6 inches tall, which is an inch more than this. This is 5.
Yeah, I couldn't do that one.
Well, you can. You just gotta get in there.
Yeah.
You see, like I can go back in here and then do
Oh, it
another
got bigger,
pull.
right?
So you know, the clay is really, if you know how to move the clay, you know, it's really hard once you become real good friends with it.
Does this clay shrink as much as the brown clay we use?
Yeah, pretty much. 6. Once you get it here, you're gonna have to take it out of the wheel. All right. There's gonna be a few tools you're gonna need for that. You already know this guy here, the needle tool, right? You got a needle tool. Then you're gonna have these 2 tools that are the wooden rib and the metal rib. And then you have, I'm sorry, I'm gonna get that. Then you got this tool that kind of does both things that I need to do. But this one we don't have in the studio. This tool is not very cheap. This is like $8. That's expensive for tools. And what you're going to need to do is pretty much the 2 steps that I'm talking about. Is you got your first step where you're gonna flatten your walls a little bit. And that's just so you can get the throwing lines out. And that's if you want to get them out. You don't need to. But if you want to make a cylinder at the beginning, it's easier to just get used to having a clean cylinder, getting there, and then from there, adjusting the different things you want to do with it. Meaning, if you want to leave the finger marks, then you don't do that, right? But I'm just showing you how to get sort of a flat surface that is pretty even. So I'm doing that with this tool. And with this tool, I'm moving the clay. I'm just kind of pressing it there in position. What this tool does, it scrapes the extra clay. So you can still a little wet there, you see? Like I can put my fingers, I can touch it, and you can still see marks. What this tool is going to do is going to remove the excess clay from the walls. So you see all this excess clay I took out, and that's a sticky clay. So when you do this is going to make it easier for you to pick this up and get it out of the wheel, which is the next step. But right before that, we're going to use basically the last tool we're going to introduce today. Don't forget the sponge, this is a tool too. And with this wooden knife, you're going to remove some of the excess clay right here in the bottom, to the point where you create a bit of a shadow, a bit of an angle there. What you're making here is can you pass me is there a wire around there, my green wire?
Right here.
There, nope.
There it is.
Yep, down.
Up there.
You have it. What you're making here is you're making a guide for your wire to go through. Now the wires are going to be all the way also over there. You get your wire. And once you've created that little line with your wooden knife, there's many ways to hold this, by the way. Like you can hold it flat with the edge side flat on the table and just cut it. You can cut it like this. You can create different effects on how you want your foot to look with this. So, you know, there's no one way to do it. Like say if you wanted to just get a bit more of an angle, you can go there again. See that? And you just create sort of like bigger lift from the bottom. Do you notice the difference? Mm-hmm. So many ways to do this. No one right. There's just many different. Alright, and one last thing that I didn't do, that I'm going to do now, is just I'm going to take all the water out of the bottom. So I pick it up and you see how much water there was in there. That's why it's better not to get used to doing that. This step is, it's fine if if you're not afraid of getting down there again, but a lot of you guys are going to be like, why did I reach it? So just do that before. From here, you're just going to cut the floor just like that. So you see, if you're not scared, you can just have your thumbs right on the wheel head and just pull through. As long as you do it, you're not stopping there or anything like that. You're going here and you're pulling down. One move, all right? No, just don't get stuck in the middle of it. Don't do any of the stopping thing. Just you can do it while the wheel's spinning. You can do it just the wheel spinning any way you want. And then at this point, since you dry it outside with the rig, the metal rig, you're ready to take that out. So before you start throwing, you're gonna have this board right in front of you where the cell phone is. I'm just gonna put it here so I can show you. No, it's fine. I'm gonna put it here. And you're gonna pick it up and you dry your hands. So now you have dry hands and dry outside. And you can pick this up very easy and put it here. All right? So that's simple. All right? Very simple, all right? All right, so I'm gonna cut this in half now. I'm gonna show you because you were asking me how thin does it have to be. Now that's going to be a thing that's going to be progressing for you guys as you go. All right, so there we go. So that should stay standing.
It's thicker than a
you
book.
see,
Yeah.
so if you see, yeah. Well, this is on an angle right here. So if you see it, it might be a little thinner. But still, you just see it's pretty consistent from the bottom to the top. You can see it on the top, how it's just a bit thicker. Can you notice that? Just a little bit. Or you have the thickness here to make sure that you make that lip. But if I would have just pulled through and get it just sharp in there, you wouldn't be able to shape it later on just like I did, right? So you don't need to get at this thing at the beginning. If you get a wall, most of your walls to be that thick, that's fine. That's good. If you get a little thicker than that, that's okay too. All right, the idea is just to finish stuff today. So for the class, the goal today is make 4 cylinders.
4?
You got 1 hour, yeah, you can. Make 4,
2 hours.
2 hours. Wow, you got plenty of time. 5 cylinders. All right. So that's going to be our assignment, and I'm gonna be throwing with you guys. All right. So you're gonna see me demo these 1,000 times, and you guys are gonna ask me to do it more than that also. All right. So now let's get you guys the clay. Is everybody ready to go get the clay?